What's going on, friends? We've covered a lot of ways to hop up your Harley. And a lot of these ways to hop up your Harley, there's a certain order you generally want to go in. I mean, technically you could go in any order you want, but when you start adding parts to your motorcycle, if you do it in a specific order, it can really save you a lot of time and money throughout your build. So number one, the best thing you could do when you start out to build your Harley is to do everything all at one time. But doing everything all at one time is extremely expensive. I mean, we're talking thousands of dollars up front, not to mention if you're paying somebody to do the work for you. Now, I know there's some people out there that could just write a check for all of it and blink their eye. I, like many others out there, am not one of those people, so I have to do my work as time and budget allows. But before we get too far into today's video, please be sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Now, part of being really smart about how you build out your bike is so that you don't have to go back in and touch the same parts twice. And this is really important, especially if you're paying somebody to do this and you're actually getting charged labor for it. Now, if you're doing it yourself, it really doesn't matter. It just takes you more time to do it, and you got to go back over the same steps over and over again. Now, the first place in hopping up your Harley that I like to start is probably not what you're thinking. You're probably thinking the exhaust system. Well, that is a great place to start, but if we're doing this one piece at a time, I like to start with the tuning. But these bikes, when they were bone stock, they were running so lean that it would actually cough and backfire back through the throttle body, and just overall, they weren't terrible running bikes, but you could definitely tell they were starving for fuel. So the first thing I like to start with is going ahead and getting you a good flash tuner. Now, the flash tuner should be the first thing you do to your motorcycle, even if it's bone stock. I know everybody wants to go out and immediately start with some slip-on exhaust on the bike to get that sound. Now, you can put slip-ons on a bike without tuning it. I'm not a huge fan of it, but you can get away with it, but it does have some side effects, and I've got a video on that explains what can happen when you put slip-ons on without tuning the motorcycle. But the reason why I like to start with the flash tuner is if you're doing this in stages, the flash tuner is going to give you some major performance gains even with your stock air filter and your stock pipes. The bike's going to be fueled correctly, it's going to run a heck of a lot better, and this is going to be the basis for everything you do going forward. So I highly recommend a flash tuner. I'd recommend the FP3 if you're just going to cams, or maybe you could do a big bore kit with it. I would just talk with Vance and Hines first, but getting it on a dyno and getting it tuned with your FP3 is going to be pretty difficult. So I would definitely recommend the Power Vision, because this is going to be the unit that's going to allow you to get it on a dyno if you are going all the way with porting heads, higher compression, big bore cylinders, and the cams as well. Now, once you've got your tuner, that opens you up to any exhaust you want to use. You're not just limited to slip-ons. Then you could put a 2-into-1 on it, you could put 2-into-2s, or you could even do the slip-ons. And at this time, after you get your exhaust, go ahead and put that on, map it in for that. There'll probably just be a map for a high-flow air cleaner, but the high-flow air cleaner, it's without it in the stock air box, the bike's just going to run a little rich, which I did that with these bikes, ran the stock air cleaners with a tune and a slip-on exhaust, and didn't really notice a whole lot of it running rich, but it ran a hell of a lot better. Now, the third thing would be to go ahead and add the air cleaner. Now, once you add the air cleaner, you've got your stage 1 set complete. Once that setup's done, that is the basis for everything that we're going to do going forward on the motorcycle. The cam's going to give you an idea of what kind of power your bike can make. When you change that cam out in a bike, you can get almost 100 horsepower out of just a 103 Harley with a stage 1. And tune that cam in, they're right at 100 horse. And again, I have a video outlining what just a cam swap alone can do for your Harley on your 88, your 96, and your 103. But since we're doing this in stages, and this is where if you're paying somebody to do this work, this is where this is really important. When doing a cam installation, you would normally have to pull the top of your rocker box off, and depending on the age of your bike, you're probably going to need a set of rocker box gaskets, which it's not a bad idea just to change them, especially if your bike's got some miles on it. Now, there is a way around that, and that is with going back with adjustable push rods when you put your new cam in. So rather than having to open the rocker box and get the valve spring pressure off the push rods, well, you could go with a set of adjustable push rods. Now, if you have collapsible push rod tubes on a twin cam, you're in business. But if you have a Sportster, you're going to have to go back with collapsible push rod tubes. Now the trick is to take a pair of bolt cutters and just cut the pushrod tube or cut the pushrod itself, depending on, now if you have adjustable pushrods, don't cut the tube. That's counterproductive. But on a Sportster, you will have to cut through the pushrod tube. But go back with a set of adjustable pushrods. This will allow you to get the valve spring pressure off, get the new cam installed, and then the adjustable pushrods will just slide right in place of the old ones, and you don't have to worry about getting into the rocker box. Just make sure you get the pushrods adjusted properly, because 9 times out of 10, if you buy a Harley that won't start, you get it really cheap, check the pushrods. They might be adjustable. I've found that quite a bit over the years. So by going this route, you're saving money, time, and labor. You can go ahead and get the cam in there, ride the bike, enjoy the added power from the cam. Most guys will stop right there at a cam because you're already right there at the 3-figure mark when it comes to horsepower and pretty close there on torque. Next, I would highly recommend going with the big bore kit. Now, with the big bore kit, this is where you're actually going to have to pull the top end off, obviously, because you're going to be changing the cylinders. This is where things get a little sticky. This would be the time to decide whether you want to go ahead and port the heads or not, because this is when you're going to have the complete top end disassembled. You're going to have your rocker boxes off, you're going to have the heads off, you're going to have the pistons out, everything else. Now, when you go back with the big bore kit, your cam is going to dictate what kind of compression you can go back with. So when you're picking that cam out, just be sure that you get a cam that's going to meet your performance goals when it comes to compression. You don't want a cam that's only rated to 10-to-1 compression and you're looking at going to 10.5-to-1. It's not going to work out very well. But ultimately, when you have the top end off to add the big bore kit, this is a perfect opportune time to send your heads out to someplace like Hammer, or even your cylinders. You can send your cylinders to Hammer and have them bored over and buy some pistons from them, and they can do the whole kit, which that is way more cost effective than actually going out and buying brand new cylinders. You can take your existing ones, if they'll bore them out to the max, so say if you have an 88, they'll bore it out to say a 97, and that's about as big as you can get with them before the spigots will actually crack on them. The other option that you would have at this time would be to take your cylinders down to a local machine shop that does motorcycle cylinder boring and have them bore the cylinders out for you. Then you could choose what kind of pistons you want, make sure the compression ratio is going to line up with the specs of your cam, and then you could go all back together. Now, honestly, worst case scenario would be you've done your cam, you decide you want to do your big bore kit, but you're on the fence about your heads. You could always pull your heads off, go ahead and just shine them up a little bit, clean the carbon off, install your big bore kit, whether you're going and actually having it bored out and you're putting your own choice of piston in there, or you buy a complete kit from, say, S&S or Fuel Moto. Then you could go back with that entire setup, put your heads back on, and enjoy the big bore kit with your stock heads. And then later on down the road, if you decide, yeah, I want to get a little bit more out of this, pull your heads back off and then go out and have it ported again. And also at this time, when you have your heads off of there, if you're not liking the adjustable push rods and you want to go back with solid push rods, this is your opportunity to do that. Push rods, they're not inexpensive, but they're inexpensive compared to the other components that you're buying. And as always, just make sure you go back with a fresh set of gaskets every time you do this. Now, as you go through each stage of your build, I would highly recommend waiting to actually go get the bike dynoed with your final tune, because a dyno run could be $300 to $500 depending on who's doing it, where you're doing it, and how much time you spend on it. But as you add a big bore kit or you add cams to your bike, definitely go out and do the auto tune with the respective tuner that you bought. The auto tune is going to get you really close. It's not going to be perfect, but it'll be rideable to the point where you really won't know that there's more power left. I mean, some of you guys that are really experienced, you'll be able to feel it and tell this thing's got a lot more to give. Now, I would highly recommend, though, wait till you get your final setup. You're going as far as you're going to go with this bike. If you're going all the way to the big bore kit and the head porting, after you get all that done, go ahead and tune it. Run your auto tune on it. That way, you'll be all set up to take it to your dyno tuner if you're not trailering it. And from there, lastly, your dyno tuner, he could go in and extract that extra horsepower that's going to be left on the table without that human intervention that a qualified, experienced dyno tuner is going to be able to give your bike. So guys, that is my recommendation if you're building up your Harley in stages. Because like I mentioned, that's thousands of dollars out the door. And if you're doing all that at once, I mean, that's awesome. That is the way I love to do it. And honestly, that's the most cost-effective way to do it, is just do it all at once, because whoever you're paying, they're only getting into the bike once. And if you're doing it yourself, it just saves you time. If you're like me, I can't afford to be out that much money all at one time, so I have to build it in stages. And guys, that is just my recommendation on how to keep the cost down by doing it piece by piece and making sure you actually have something new to enjoy on the bike each time you get it done. And if you're like me, I like to do everything in stages so I can feel the power and see what difference each stage I went through made. Heck, when I got these bikes, I literally tuned them bone stock and rode them around for a while, still stock, just with a tune. That right there was worth the money alone, just on a flash tuner. As always, guys, I want to thank everybody for watching, and a big thank you to everybody that asked that question. I've answered a lot of comments with that question of where to start, and there was just so much interest in that I thought, we'd make a video out of it and kind of address some of this of where to start. So if you're brand new, I hope this helped you out. I hope to kind of give you a little insight into the path that's probably the most cost-effective to take. But as always, guys, please continue to leave your comments. I try to answer as many as I can. We're getting so many here lately, it's hard to get back to everyone. But I do appreciate you. I do read all of them. I hope this video was helpful. Please be sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed the video. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. But guys, stay safe on the streets. Watch out for those cars. There's a lot more bikes out there and people still aren't paying attention. So we got to watch out for them. But until next week, guys, stay safe. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys next week.